Is this thing on? Welcome back to Big Mouth and fancy seeing you here. And welcome EastEnders fans. Now, you should all go and follow Sean Clark Author on Twitter, at Sean Clark Author. I'm about to read his latest EastEnders article. The guy nails it every time. Hi Sean. Should we give this a read, right? So EastEnders has lost its way. That's what the article's called. So if we scroll up, because I don't have any editing software, sorry, I'm an amateur. Those of you who follow my blog will know I've become increasingly concerned about the direction EastEnders has taken since Christmas. Well, Sean, I've been concerned about the direction it's been taking for over 15 years now. And I think you probably agree that it hasn't been great in that time either. A very inconsistent show. The festive period is usually when the soap pulls out all the stops to impress. So when Alfie Moon returned as the bad guy, talking about lot conversions and wanting a reconciliation with Kat, I found myself questioning whether it was time to stop watching completely. It's a bit late now, isn't it, Sean? But this is where I am with EastEnders. I haven't watched it for ages. I'm waiting for Kate's first episodes. Then I will watch it religiously again because I think she's going to turn this show around. And in fact, they introduced a couple of new actors. The new Masood girls, they look very interesting. I'm very excited. I thought the actors had a great personality when they were talking. Although one of them said she's never watched Game of Thrones. I'm going to buy you a box set. I'm telling you. Right. So where are we here? Alfie was the good guy in the breakdown of his relationship with Kat. The writers established that the fact months before, yes, he slept with Hayley, but as far as Kat was concerned, she had endangered her kids for a quick fumble and Alfie rightly took them all away. More on that later. Let me talk to you about Alfie sleeping with Hayley. Totally out of character, totally ridiculous, totally unbelievable. And I tell you what, John York, you have lost it. Anyway, we move on. First, how many scenes of characters supposedly dead have they managed to cram in over the past few months? Alfie, Mel, Ray, Hayley, my sentiments exactly. Each time we were led to believe the character had died. Each time they popped back with a hearty gotcha. Yes, and EastEnders and John York did that the year before with Lauren Branning when she fell off the Vic roof, for Christ's sake. Her sister, Abby, died and she survived. Ridiculous. York has totally gone insane, hasn't he? Anyway, let's see what else Sean's got to say. It's been done so often that I fully expected Dr. Leg's death scene to end with him opening his eyes, giving Dot a big grin, and then explaining how her expectations have been subverted. Yeah, that's brilliant, Sean. The same goes for Hayley running away. Does Katie Jarvis have it written into her contract that her character must go on the run every 3 episodes? It seems to be the case, doesn't it? Let's take a look at why I believe EastEnders has lost its way, using the worst storyline and worst family as examples. Shiano. I'll tell you my opinion after I read what Sean's saying. Let me be clear that I like Sharon and Kiana as a couple. I don't, by the way. What was a disastrous idea on paper turned out to be a stroke of genius by the writers. Fans have taken Shiano to their hearts, writing glowing praise on social media, concocting sizzly fanfics, and making video tributes on YouTube. Yes, the shippers, it doesn't take much for the shippers to like a relationship. Even if it's a crap relationship, they'll love it. Shiano is a crap idea, poorly executed, but let Sean talk about this relationship a little bit more, because this channel is about everyone's opinions, not just mine. So the story bobbled along nicely until bad decisions, poor planning and nonsensical plot twists rendered it unwatchable. You mean like the past 10, 15 years, Sean? Keanu and Sharon together worked wonders, but the moment Louise entered the mix, it soured the taste of what should have been EastEnders' version of Rob Rob. Now Louise, aka Tilly Keeper, we've spoken about Tilly before. She's beautiful, she can deliver her lines, she's great. Most lads would love to date her, right? But they just don't know what to do with her. First of all, she's miscast as a Mitchell. I mean, they just don't know what to do with her, and it's going to be interesting what Kate Oates does with her, if anything. So they've squeezed her into this story, but all she seems to do is make passes at males. What about, Mel's former husband? What was all that about? And then it was Keanu, and then it's Mel's son. I mean, where is this woman's insatiable appetite going to stop? Anyway, Sean continues to write, the original idea should have been Sharon and Keanu's affair uncovered by Louise and dealt with by Phil upon his return at Christmas. But the fan demand forced the BBC to keep it going. At least I think that's what happened. It's the only excuse for the absolute clusterfuck Keanu has become. Louise has no place in this story, agreed. She exists as an obstacle for Sharon and Keanu to deal with. But watching her turn into a needy mess has made for uncomfortable viewing. Meanwhile, Phil knew his daughter was interested in Keanu and inexplicably played matchmaker. I know. I mean, Phil Mitchell, matchmaker. I mean, he'd have to be drunk. Phil's out of character actions is another example of the shitfest this story has become. Phil Mitchell setting his daughter up with anyone is as likely as a lady taking responsibility for her own actions. More on that in a moment. Keanu was horrified at Phil's interference, claiming he wouldn't date his brother's ex-girlfriend, but was quite happy to sleep with her the week before. This made Phil blackmail Keegan into whatever that is. What is that? Yada, you know what? Who gives a shit at this point? To cut a long story short, Keanu and Louise got together, and it was true love for the young Mitchell until she got dumped a fortnight later. Cue weeks of pining while the newly returned Sharon mended the pieces of her stepdaughter's broken heart. Even though she's basically the cause, this is supposed to be ironic, but of course it doesn't work. Sean says, those 2-week relationships are sure hard to get over, eh? Now, Phil has sent Keanu to Spain. Surprisingly, Sean was okay with the trip and believed it was a kosher job. This is the bullshit that they're expecting viewers to swallow. And believe me, a lot of the dumbass viewers will swallow it, Sean. Sharon knows Phil better than anyone. He paid a homeless tramp to pose as her dad and was the catalyst in her ex-husband's murder. It's hardly likely Keanu's been packed off to top up his tan, Shazza. Keanu would have worked better had Louise never gotten involved and Phil had become like a dad to Keanu. That way, the betrayal would be bigger when Phil discovers his wife's been playing away with the Square's answer to a Playgirl cover model. In fact, Phil and Keanu have had so many arguments, run-ins and fights that the big reveal will be about as exciting as Friday night at Ian Bill's house. Where else can they go with this other than Keanu getting the better of Albert Square's top dog? It's hilarious, actually. Sean's ironic sarcasm is brilliant. He's really good at writing that. And Sean's writing a novel, by the way, which I can't wait to read when he's completing it. But this is an interesting point because Kate Oates actually said when she was responding to fan questions that she was planning on making Keanu and Phil like mates. So when he does find out, the explosion will be more eventful. And this is what Kate does so well. So, Sean, your dreams have been answered. But how they do it after, as you say, they've had so many run-ins and fights, will be very interesting and tricky. Poor Kate's got to fix this mess, and that's what she's going to do. Now Sean starts on the Slater family, and this is brilliant. What more can be said about the Slaters? Well, plenty actually. That family, except Gene, epitomised the current state of morally bankrupt EastEnders. I'd love to go through them individually and point out why they're unwatchable trash, but the idea of cancelling my whole weekend doesn't really appeal to me. Let's look at the worst offenders. Stacey, Kat, Hayley, supposed to be villains, right? They must be, because in the past 6 months, only Saint Stacey has shown some redeemable qualities. She's a brilliant mother and has been Ruby's rock during her time of need. That's where the glowing praise ends. Kat and Hayley are anything but fit mothers who should be nowhere near anyone else's children, let alone their own. Why is Hayley portrayed as a victim? Why is she written in a way that expects the viewer to feel sorry for her? Hayley tried to poison Cherry with alcohol and has given her up about 235 times, but we're still expected to root for her. No thanks. Saint Stacey has been sacrificed as the SJW altar, bitching and moaning constantly at Big Dumb Martin because he's a man and too stupid to understand things as clearly as she does. Stacey Fowler is no longer a credible character, a mother, a wife, a person. She is an obnoxious, ungrateful, entitled nag who exists to spout feminist bullshit in almost every scene with her husband. Remember, Sean's saying this, not me, but I do agree with him. Check out this gem of a comment to Ruby. Wow, it must be hard living with that awful husband of yours, Stacey. This is funny. Oh no, this is funny. Let me start again because I kind of missed a bit out. Check out this gem of a comment to Ruby. You try living with him. So let's start again. Wow, it must be hard living with that awful husband of yours, Stacey. Didn't he, 1, take you back after you passed off his best friend's child as his? 2, cheated on him while he took your daughter to her school play? 3, allow your thieving family to gate crash his house. I'm really enjoying this. 4, stop your daughter from being kidnapped by her jailbird dad. 5, stick around when you suffered from severe mental illness. Yeah, he's a real bastard. EastEnders has its morals upside down and inside out. The good characters are bastardized while the scum of the earth are written as heroes. This is what happens when a show becomes infested with SJWs. Characterizations falls by the wayside, and we get nothing but baddies with a victim complex portrayed as saints. I will say a lot about this in a minute. Some will tell you EastEnders was always like this. It wasn't. There was a time when a character who did something bad could expect to get their comeuppance. Cindy Beale was the biggest bitch in soap who paid a hitman to shoot her husband. As punishment, we saw her lose her children and die in prison. Nowadays, Cindy would be written as the hero and Ian as the villain. That's true. The only example of big characters who got away with being bad are Brad Mitchell and Janine Butcher, but they were exceptions rather than the rule, and rarely seen with a sense of victimhood. If new producer Kate Oates wants to improve EastEnders, she could start by restoring Stacey Fowler's personality and give us some leading characters with a moral compass. Lose the Slaters 2.0 and fix Shiano. Anything else will only see viewers turn off in the long run. Has EastEnders lost its way? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. So Sean, I'm going to reply to you via this video. So EastEnders to me has lost its way years and years ago. Now, Sean makes a really valid point here. While they make these female characters who are absolutely terrible people make terrible immoral decisions as the heroes and the men as the villains. Now, actually, this has gone on in soap for the past 20 or 30 years. Not necessarily so much in EastEnders, but if you watch Coronation Street in Emmerdale, it happens all the time. We've got females in Emmerdale right now who kind of do these horrible things, but get away with it, and then they get spun into heroes. It's like Charity Dingle. She's now in this relationship, and we're all supposed to forget what a bitch she's been and how evil she's been in the past. Debbie Dingle blinded a guy because she ordered another guy to get beaten up. And she was feeling guilty after it all happened, and they made her into a hero, and she pretty much got away with it, right? And this is what happens in soap these days. Not just these days, it's been happening for decades. They spin anything a female does and make it into a righteous situation. So when a woman has an affair in a soap, they'll blame the man for not paying them enough attention. I mean, it's kind of true, but they just flip everything, so the woman's never to blame. So Sean has got a great point here. What they've done with Stacey is absolutely terrible, and it's a mess. Now, if you are going to feed a character with feminist propaganda, at least make it believable. But this is terrible because she's aiming these feminist indignations to Martin Fowler, who pretty much is a really nice guy. But we know that feminists think that nice guys are the worst human beings. It's true. I've seen them post it on Twitter. It's propaganda, badly written, but this is what everything Sean says is spot on. And I enjoyed reading what he had to say. Let me know what you think of Sean's article. Sean Clark Author, follow him on Twitter. Really nice guy, got lots to say for himself, and he's writing a novel which I'm really excited to be reading. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more.